We have been organizing monthly series of mini symposia, organized all around the theme of digital intimacy. Today is our second one, with esteemed speakers Dr. Chan Lik Sam and also Dr. Dhiren Borisa joining us. Our moderator for this session is one of our research team member, Chimani Ramaya. So I'll turn it over to Chimani. Yeah.
Thank you, Denise. A very good evening to you all. I see we already have a good number of people with us here today. That's a great number, overwhelming actually. I see some familiar and some new names, and then as Denise introduced, we also have the project team members from our 4 sites, and of course, the 2 young and very interesting researchers we're all here to listen to this evening. Welcome, Dr. Dhiren Borisa and Dr. Chan. Okay, let's start then. Whether it's an 18-year-old from the outskirts of Bangalore or a 22-year-old master's student from Singapore, something they have in common is that they have a very complex relationship with one device, a phone, almost an enigma. We don't need to question anymore the complex, the potential of this device and digital spaces it unlocks for these, let's say, young women anymore. We know that these new spaces are complexly entwined with their familial and romantic relationships, education, dreams of a career, and so on. But only when we dig deeper do we understand that there is something novel, emerging, and transforming among all these aspects of their lives. These are forms of intimacy that are unique to the age and online-offline lives of these young women. We are here today to look at these seemingly new forms of intimacies from various political contexts and standpoints to raise fundamental questions about why just these 2 words, digital and intimacy, has managed to gather all of us here today. And this makes me wonder, have we as gendered socio-political subjects only come up with new colorful wrapping sheets that are mediums and expressions for the same old desires that are impossibly complex and inherently problematic? And with that long question, I'd like to introduce our speakers for this evening. As you know from our event posters, Dr. Chan is an assistant professor with the School of Journalism and Communication at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. He has a doctorate from the Ammenberg School of Communication and Journalism, University of South Carolina. Sam, if I may call you that, in his work introduces us to the concept of networked social publics and disaggregates intimacy to reach power, neoliberal subjects, gender relations, capitalism, and social networks. Oof. And thus, he aptly writes somewhere, love is therefore inevitably chaotic. Welcome again, Sam. And we have Dr. Borisa, who is an assistant professor at the Jindal Law School. Dhiren, if I may call you that, has a doctorate from Jawaharlal Nehru University on Queer Cartographies of Desires in Delhi. He is one of the few and important voices of queer and caste politics in India. Dhiren's work shows us that certain forms of intimacy itself may be a privilege in a cis-het society. And to understand these desires, we need to look at history of spaces, social capital, access to technology, and much more. Welcome again, Dhiren. So our plan for the evening is that Dhiren will present to us first and then Sam, after which we open the floor or Zoom call, may I say, to calls, to questions and discussions. And before we begin, just last week in a conversation with Professor Niranjana, she was saying how all our research sites, data from Bangalore will be qualitatively unique because access to high-speed internet, personal smartphone, and exposure to new digital platforms cannot be taken for granted here. So I'm all the more thrilled to see what we learn about digital intimacy from the geographer of sexualities and desire and poet we have with us here. Over to you, Dhiren.
Thank you, everyone, for this generous invitation, making me part of this mini symposium. Our lives are messy, our desires are messy, and we are living multiple hybrid lives. And in the times of COVID, I'm right now struggling with it, but all our intimacies are digital. So I thought, like, before we begin talking about what forms do they take, etc., let's delve into a little Bollywood-esque popular culture narrative. And I thought, let me start with a trailer of a forthcoming film that is going to be released 2 days from now with Bhumi Padnekar and Rajkumar Rao, titled Badhai Do. The film trailer that I'm going to show is in Hindi, but it has subtitles, so apologies. I hope subtitles will suffice. But there's something particular that I want to showcase through this trailer that will be represented in the presentation later. So I'll just play the trailer right now. It's funny. It talks about desires, but also trying to talk about the institution of marriage.
जेंडर आपको क्या लगता है? फीमेल। 4 साल से जिद पकड़े बैठे हैं, इसी लड़की से शादी करूंगा। अरे नहीं करनी मुझे शादी वादी। 31 की हो गई है, तेरा भविष्य क्या है? गणित की टीचर बन जाती, साइंस पढ़ाती, पीटी टीचर बन गई, उसकी तो ट्यूशन भी नहीं होती है। चोरी चोरी जान चकोरी काजो भेजा देखो टाका जी। मैडम सुनिए तो, आप फीमेल एज 31, हमें 32 के लग गए, सेम कास्ट। मुझे शादी में इंटरेस्ट ही नहीं। तुम्हें पता है? क्या पता? पर कोई टेंशन नहीं है, हम समझते हैं, आपकी रक्षा भी कर लेंगे। अगर आप और हम आपस में शादी कर लें, हमारे परिवारों की चिट्ठी बहुत हो जाएगी, फिर हम आराम से रह सकते हैं, रूममेट्स। तुम भी क्यों सुना? वो तो लंबा पड़ेगा ना भाई। पुलिस को सिखाओगे कौन सा रास्ता लेना चाहिए? आईडी दिखाओ। आईडी? मुझे क्या दिखा रहे हो? उसे दिखाओ। ये कौन? कजन है। किसकी कजन? सुमी की कजन। एकदम ओरिजिनल रियल कजन है। घटिया बातें करते रहो, घटिया प्लान्स बनाते रहो। तुमने बनाया कोई प्लान आज तक? नहीं, तुम उपले बनाओ, उपले। क्या उपले? अरे वो जो ऐसा गोबर का केक बनाते नहीं, फिंगरप्रिंट लगा के। तुम्हें हम उपले समझाने आए हैं यहाँ पे। यार मम्मी ने बोला था चक्कर ना चलेयो, मेरे अरे गुड न्यूज़ कब दे रहे हो? वक्त रहते कर लो बच्चा, हमको देखो। फर्स्ट नाइट, सिंगल शॉट, जॉब डन। छोटे से कमरे में रहते हैं, इस तरफ भी छोटा सही है। अब तो फिर क्यों नहीं हो रहा बच्चा? छोटा नहीं है। जैसे आपका कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं लड़कों में है ना, पर क्या हमारा है?
Sorry for that long trailer, but something particularly interesting that I wanted to narrate from that was something that I felt when I was growing up. So, growing up in a small town, you always feel that the only solution to probably your queerness or the way in which you desire is that you finally found some lesbian women and get married to her. And this entire film is about marriage of convenience. And in one way, it tries to tell us about probably we can, in some ways, subvert or play around the institution of marriage in the way in which it heteronormatively decides our fates and destinies. But what another important thing why I wanted to show this trailer is something of the very many things that can be interpreted from this trailer, from the sexuality of the police officer, especially in North Indian context, that is fetishized, in particular gay male desire realm, something central to a conversation that is happening between Bhumi Padnekar and Rajkumar Rao, the two protagonists on the screen. When Rajkumar Rao approaches Bhumi Padnekar for marriage, when Bhumi Padnekar is shown as having is shown as lesbian, here Rajkumar Rao is trying to say that, you might not be interested in men, but I am, and probably we can live our lives as roommates. The solvent to that relationship is that we come from same caste. That's the reason why you are 31 and I'm going to turn 32, and I can protect you from all evils that are going to land up in our lives, and our marriages will sustain the heteronormative logic, the social compulsion of our society, especially in Indian context, is because we are from the same caste. You're Singh, I am Thakur. Now, from there, I want to take you to Facebook, and specifically Facebook here, because when we started thinking about our desires, and from the loneliness of the small town, felt that one way in which you could connect with everybody else in the world and feel not lonely was the advent of the digital. So you had Yahoo chat rooms through which you would talk to people. You would have Orkut, where people would write testimonials for each other. And then you had sudden surgeons of Facebook. And then Mark Zuckerberg comes and transforms all our lives. And in that transformation, it allowed you to create digital personas for yourself, anonymize yourself, take on pseudonyms. And I personally took a pseudonym, but I was very cautious that when I was taking a fake name for myself and creating a persona digitally, I cannot be anybody. So I would call myself Sanidhya, but I will suffix it with saying Sharma. I'm not any regular Sanidhya. I'm Sanidhya Sharma. And thus, in that logic, claim an upper caste title in order to negotiate the realm of desire. Because growing up, we were told how intimacy is forged, on whom do you feel desirable towards, is all constituted through caste. And it is who is good looking, fair complexion, who is come from a good background, English speaking. I fell in love with somebody from my class in my school, and I was in love with this particular boy because he was everything which I was not. He was rich, he was dominant caste, his father worked in a prestigious occupation. Who was I? Coming from a working class background, struggling both on the context of caste and class locations, but also my sexuality. How did desire form? From that trailer that we just witnessed, and Facebook, which had allowed so many to create fake accounts, transact their sexual desires, forge friendships, even though without any necessity to actually meet in offline world. There was no promise entailed there, but people would still connect, communicate, and feel like community. You'd create secret support networks on Facebook. From the trailer on marriage of convenience, I want to take you to a real page on Facebook about marriage of convenience, not about the film. Film can be fictional. Film can be talking about anything, but something real that film is talking about. Real through which any form of intimacy in South Asian context actually gets facilitated. That's exactly what Ambedkar wrote about when he says, marriage is actually solventing caste, it's solidifying caste relations. So even when one is trying to transact, our queerness can manipulate the logic of marriage. The one social institution it can't dare to transgress then becomes of caste. And here on your screen, you can see a series of people requesting and trying to look for other people that they can forge relationships with. And one thing that continues to circulate here is, I'm 26-year-old, working in Bangalore. I'm seriously looking for a Brahmin girl. I don't expect anything except the same caste. When I was a student at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, and we used to run a queer group there, we would often find these requests coming from different queer people in the campus, secret, anonymously written on a Facebook group. And they would request that, can you put us in touch with a gay man, or put us in touch with a lesbian girl with which we can have a marriage of convenience. But just make sure that they should be also caste, that they should also be Brahmin, that they should also be Thakur. And one wondered, that in all of this realm of intimacy formation, where do all of others who have already been othered in the realm, even in the digital sphere, where there's a promise, even if slight, that we can become somebody else, and in that becoming can transact and build newer forms of social intimacies and sexual intimacies, where do we stand? Is anything possible for us? Let me take you to other apps here. Here on the question of us, who does get to love, right? On the left is a screenshot, a conversation from Planet Romeo, which used to be a very dominant queer male dating website for some period of time before Grindr came in and took over, especially in this part of the world. And there's a conversation, it's a conversation happening with me. And it's a very simple conversation. It's a conversation about whether you drink alcohol or not. And how this simple question about whether you drink alcohol, and people would ask this question, in order to as just before we started this mini symposium, Professor Tejaswini was talking about how vegetarianism is a myth in Ahmedabad. Just secretly people asked, do you eat eggs or not in Ahmedabad? I grew up very close to Ahmedabad. Here, a conversation of do you have booze then translates into so many different layers. That even after affirming that, yes, I drink alcohol, saying that, but good Brahmins don't drink alcohol. And I'm made to wonder, how do you know that I'm Brahmin? And what makes you? Is it because my access to technology, my access and placement on this space? The conversation becomes, look at your pictures, that smile, that leather bag that you are carrying. That all suffices to create an image of you that cannot be anything else than the dominant caste image, and therefore marginally putting into the realm of desire. While they might say good Brahmins don't drink, one would wonder, maybe it's only about Gaumutra that they are thinking about, at least into this political regime. But there would be direct conversation and question that you would be asked, are you a Brahmin? Oh, I am a Rajput. And one wonders, why is being Brahmin, being Rajput, or looking like a Brahmin necessary logic when one is trying to forge intimacy, even in a space digital, even in a space where one not necessarily has to be all the time. There are a few other screenshots that I would like to share here. A conversation from Grindr where somebody is trying to say and ask whether you're Dalit or a Maratha. Now, probably in everyday practice, we might not come across these direct forms of askings. But there are subtle ways in which this is made clear that who we can belong in this space and who cannot belong. So here on gay dating apps, you would find Gujars and Jats in North India, and Gaudas and Reddys in South, or Patels, and in dominant caste people in different parts of the world. So all what I wanted to actually talk about through this few slides here is trying to understand that, be it digital, be it online or offline, whatever forms of social relationships or intimacies that you are trying to transact cannot be seen outside the realm of the way in which social is constructed. And here, caste being so central to the imagination itself. So while one is trying to create a persona in order to survive digital scapes, one gets back into those registers of caste-based transactions in present self-presentation in order to survive those spaces. So you would have people who would clearly say, only upper caste people contact me, fatty South Indians stay away, or only Brahmins please apply and chat with me. One wonders that when we're talking about sex and sexuality, is it only about sex that we are talking about? Finally, there's two slides I want to, two screenshots I wanted to show here, is while one sees a lot of dominant caste people sharing their caste locations and taking pride into it and seeing it as an asset of sexual transaction or an access to intimacy. There's one person on the left called, with the name I'm Valmiki Boy. For people to give a context, Valmiki is a lower caste identity It's mostly scavenging castes, who are engaged in manual scavenging. And here, while one is admitting to it, and it's seriously rare that somebody would talk about their lower caste identities so openly on these digital platforms, one also admits saying that, is it necessary to be smart when they are trying to present themselves? On the other hand, there's a profile, it's written in Devanagari, but I've translated, it's called Baman Ka Chora, means the son of the Brahmin, where in the description they would say that I might be a son of Brahmin, but my shauq or habits are that of Nawabs, which talks about the history of Muslim rule, but also about the decline and degeneration and decadence, because they were engaged in all kinds of desires that were not worthy to be talked about. And I'll finally end with this particular slide, and I'll stop here. Our Honorable Prime Minister on the screenshots of a popular dating app during the time of elections, the last general elections that happened in India. And one wonders, when does Prime Minister Narendra Modi, whose entire persona has been from a tea seller to the highest position in the governance, from a lower caste, working class background, when does he lose his caste locations when he's used as an image on this profile? In a state of Uttar Pradesh, from where the screenshots have been collected, where there's a longer history of lower caste politics, anti-caste politics, and a largest absolute number of lower caste people. I'll stop here and probably we'll continue in our conversation later.